I want attacking, purposeful football all the time. Now we're going to have backs against the wall and we're going to fight, and we're going to fight hard. You've got to show me all the guts and all the determination you've got in your body. You've got to inspire me.
A marvellous kick. That's as good as you'll ever see. And Footscray back in front.
I don't know about you guys, but if I see one bloke walking out of here, give the pat on the back from people out there for a good effort, I'll spew up.
From inside the centre square, Boyd kicked the goal. Boyd kicked the goal from inside the centre.
Hey Pack, welcome to Danny Boyd. It's a podcast about the Footscray Football Club, Proprietary Limited, trading as Western Bulldogs. They are the greatest football club in the known universe. I'm Danny McGinlay. Tom Boyd is on the other side of the room. We're not online, we're in person.
We are back. We are back. We are back in the world of the ultimate hypocrisy where Kane Corns criticises people for signing deals that are too long and simultaneously came out and said Sam Darcy has cost himself more money than any player in the history of the game by re-signing a short-term deal.
Are we really going to pay attention to Kane Corns?
It's a glorious moment of what are you talking about?
I find when people get angry at Kane Corns, I may have said this on the pod before, but it's like when people get angry at a ventriloquist's dummy.
Yeah.
Like the dummy, of course the dummy's being rude. And people start yelling at the dummy.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. There's a blunter saying, and again, like, I don't have any personal issues with the fact that Kane is doing that type of job because that's the job that he's been asked to do, obviously. A bit like your ventriloquist dummy comment. But at the same time, it is fun on an occasion to be like, if you listen to those opinion shows, right? Kane aside, everyone. Nick Riewoldt, Jack Riewoldt,
Matthew Lloyd,
Caroline
Wilson,
Barrett. There's just and here's the thing. They are they're prisoners of their own volume of content.
Yes.
Right? Is that once you've said everything, they can't all exist and be accurate at the same time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you go from, in the example that I gave, long-term deals are bad. Now they're saying, but he could have signed an even bigger long-term deal with Tasmania. And you're like, okay. So that doesn't make any sense.
Man, I keep saying we've got to make Footy Media Watch or just even an outrage show about footy outrage shows. So what we do is we show like the agenda setters, contradicting themselves.
A hilarious name for a show.
Absolutely.
It's so narcissistic.
Then we cut back to us and we're going, agenda setters, what's their brand?
Yeah.
What do they stand for? What are you doing?
What's the agenda this week? What's their agenda here? Oh, mate, it's I actually did a piece on LinkedIn this week about everything that's wrong with the sporting media in Australia at the moment. So
it's part one. It's a cliffhanger.
The next one comes out on Friday, which to everyone's it's so funny. I've done a couple of these series, and I do it in particular when I travel. So if I'm sitting on the plane, I'll write something, try and be productive, and everyone reads the first one and goes, what about this, this, and this? I'm like, covered in the second piece, mate.
Yeah, one of those was me because I did text Boydie. For new listeners,
I forgot about this.
An ongoing feud we have is Boydie, for all his media, rarely plugs this great podcast. And so I sent you a text going, writing an article about how new Footy media is and without plugging our podcast.
The argument goes, no, Danny, I'm not putting that in the speech at Spud's game.
Yes, you should have. You should have. Actually, I went on the project on Friday to promote fundraiser comedy shows for Ukraine, and I did not plug them.
I know. That's why I think that this is, again, you might start calling you Kane. Kane McGinlay. No, but it is. My point with it all was that I think there's been a really interesting shift in the media altogether in the last 15 years, right? And
Absolutely.
In particular, as you look through the time that I was in the league, you kind of had the social media element come in, but basically it was just dominated by the same media channels that were already there. Like the SENs of the world were all there. They were the first on social media from a footy content point of view because they had the engine and the people already. And they just dominated the storyline. So basically all that happened was the same narratives that everyone read could now reach more people in different places. But the same thing was said. Then you moved into this weird clash period where players in particular started to have profiles on social media and you started to talk about like, this guy's now distracted from the game or he's doing something that's not in line with these rigid 24/7 footballers that everyone, including the coaches and those types, were expecting because that's who they grew up as, especially if they were ex-players at the top level. And now we're in this world. Basically, there's an absolute abundance of choice. And without sharing anything, we shouldn't. We just got off a call with a channel or a network that's looking at essentially bringing fan podcasts and fan commentary of the game and of the clubs to the forefront, because who doesn't love sitting at the pub and talking footy with your mates?
Exactly.
That's kind of what we do. We just try and do it in a slightly different way with a different dynamic, because Danny has no idea and I used to have some.
Oh, we should put that in the blurb of the show.
I used to have some. I used to watch. Now I don't. But I think my whole thing is that now that there's just so much rubbish out there, a big part of what we're trying to do here is to make this actually half fun.
Yeah.
Half fun and half interesting. That's not completely loaded with some, okay, so if I make 750,000 people angry, that equals X amount of ad sales.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, mate, it can't be the way of the world. It has to be something positive here.
I sent you a podcast during the week, and I'll promote
You
it.
did.
Did you listen to it? Pardon the interruption.
God, no, I have not listened to it yet.
Mate, it's a brilliant episode. I will put it in the show notes for everyone. It's from a few years ago, but it's about from this American guy who ultimately teaches you, the listener, how to be a sports outrage machine. You know, you've got to the cane corns of the world, how you've got to just have an opinion, you've got to stick to it. If someone questions you
Challenges
on a point
you,
that on a point you can't think, you just say the word preposterous.
Yeah.
Preposterous. Say it 3 times so you can then think of something. And if you still can't counter it, change the subject to something else. Whataboutery.
This is
Throw it in
exactly
there.
like, this, or this is exactly like that. But what about when you said this? It's a bit like having an argument at home. What happened last year at this day that makes this relevant?
The podcast then gets quite depressing because it points out how the sports, pardon the interruption, on ESPN started all this, and then politicians learnt from it. And now we've got our orange friend starting World War III. So it's a bit depressing, but it's a great listen, and almost as good as this episode. We're 6 minutes in. We've barely mentioned the dogs. We're just justifying our own podcast.
Well, I also mentioned in the second part to that is that the flip side of that is how to learn to be an actual a person with a balanced media diet is essentially the flip side of that, where, if you fill your cup up of any description, talking about any substance with full of negativity and short-term dopamine hits, you're just going to get that feeling of, 1, lack of satisfaction, and 2, you're going to feel anxious all the time, because there's always something to be upset about in every forum these days.
And I find WhatsApp groups are there's always the so negative person.
Oh, yes, for sure.
So negative, who one player will have a fumble and they're calling them to be, delisted. Why is he even in the squad? Kill him. But you've also got, it can be toxic the other way. And I'm guilty of this, of just going, give him a chance. He's pretty good. He's all right. Everyone's great.
Totally. And I think, obviously on this show, we try and critique people within a way that's constructive is the ideal way that I approach it in particular, because I know exactly what it's like being on the lens of someone who's just getting beat up for the sake of it.
Yeah.
And I've also been someone who's been on the other end when everything's amazing and the world seems perfect, when obviously it's not. And I've been sort of everywhere in between at those two ends of the spectrum as well. And I think from my perspective, the great thing about where we are today is that whatever you want to listen to and whatever you want to consume when it comes to your footy, you've got options. Yeah. Really. You've got all the personal pieces. You've got the likes of Hamish and those guys who are doing these more in-depth, unfiltered or whatever it's called, conversations. Yeah. You've got all of that rubbish at the other end of the spectrum where they basically just make up rumours and upset people.
Yeah.
And you've got all the choice in between if you want to see a fan talking about it, or an ex-player, or a current player. Everything's there for all generations. So just choose what actually makes you feel better.
Try and eat healthily. Try and consume media healthily. We like to think we're a whole grain sandwich here.
Yeah, for sure.
Whereas,
high in fibre.
Broccoli in there.
Maybe just with a smattering of very high sugar content ketchup. We've got a bit of that in here, which might be you.
That's me. That's me. I'm the burger rings on the side. So you're getting the healthiest soup you've ever seen. There's kale in there, and then there's me with some burger rings for you to dunk in.
Yeah. It's like a chip sandwich.
Yeah. We haven't spoken about the game because, it feels like a year ago.
Oh, you know what? I didn't get. This is what I said, I think, last week, if I'm not mistaken. It's one of those games where I felt like if we won, we should have won.
Yeah.
And if we lost, I would have not been surprised and freaked it. I
would have been freaked.
But I've just got some, I wouldn't have really been unhappy with the result, but it wouldn't have surprised me if the Saints challenged us, because for whatever reason, they've had a bit of a weird team for us to play over this, even if it's just from 10 years ago and I've still got PTSD.
I think that's it, because 2015 and 2016 games against the Saints were the most traumatic games of the year.
Yeah.
2015 we're up by, I believe, 70 points and then lose with Clay Smith doing his ACL just before halftime. And then the year later, it's Redpath doing his ACL and Mitch Wallace
breaking his leg.
Oh, and Mitch screaming in the rooms. Like, you've talked about how haunting that was.
Yeah. I've also, I think, spoken about how I ended up being the person to basically put his leg back together at hospital later that night.
Really?
Haven't I? Oh, this is fantastic.
Oh, here we go. Come on.
Well, we'll actually talk about this more behind the Patreon. No, I'm joking. You can't do that.
Behind the Patreon, by the way, is where we're going to talk about Jamara. So
Yes.
that's $5 a month if you want to hear
Yeah.
what's going on.
Yeah, and look, we'll talk about a couple of other things I think that are floating around at the moment. We've come off the back of Bevo re-signing. We've talked about Bont's obviously upcoming. Danny's got a theory.
I've got a theory on that.
as well.
I'll keep that for free to wear. Let's. It's not-
But after that game, so to take it back a step, there's a weird thing that happens with AFL footballers when they go into hospitals typically, because they usually go to private hospitals. They're usually small orthopedic surgeon hospitals rather than they're not doing like cancer care and heart issues. They're doing, you've got broken bones and broken ligaments, let's stick you back together. And so in my experience, right, when I got back from Indonesia in 2014, when I got traded, I came back and I had this appendix issue. And so I went to Epworth, and this is before I even walked into the club. I'd signed the deal, but I hadn't even walked into the club for the first time.
Yep.
I walk into Epworth, and they go, yep, you've got appendicitis. We're going to take it out. The Bulldogs were a part of it. Jake Landsberger brings in this Christian fellow, I think his name is something like that. And he comes, we're going to do the surgery. You can't get in. Appendectomy. And you can't get in for surgery until what was at 8 p.m. at that stage. At night, it wasn't going to be until first thing the next morning. He goes, your appendix is not lasting that long. It's 100% going to burst based on all of your symptoms, which means you're going to go into sepsis and all this other stuff. Really bad.
Okay.
Much more difficult a surgery if it does burst, right?
Yeah. Because I've seen on the TV show Scrubs, it's actually one of the easiest procedures to do.
Yeah, correct.
But
once it bursts, basically all the toxins within it, which is what your appendix kind of has, is sort of spreads throughout all of your other organs, and you can get really sick for a period of time. Anyway, the point of all this is he goes, we're moving hospital. And we went to Melbourne Private, and Melbourne Private was closed. And so they opened the hospital for me. They turned the lights on. His team all sort of just fly in, if you will, not actually fly, but I'm
picturing like a F1, when they go
it's
into
exactly
the
what
pit crew.
Into the pit crew. The pit crew all turn up.
Yeah.
They get one of and I'm like, I've made it. But that's
is that general?
Yeah.
Are you awake or
no general? Yeah,
general. All right, sweet.
Yeah. So they bring in the anaesthetist. They just put on the red alert, and everyone comes in because he has his team, right? And anyway, my point is that sometimes when you go to these types of things, it's very atypical of what you'd see from other people, and it's very irregular in how you operate within these surgical environments. And the same thing was with Mitch, because we got to the Avenue Hospital, which is in Paran, at midnight or after midnight. So there's nothing. They're not taking inpatients at that stage.
Yeah. Why did it take so long? So Mitch did it probably about 9:30 p.m.
They couldn't move him.
Couldn't move him because he was in too much pain.
Too much pain. They couldn't get his sock off. They couldn't get his boots off. They couldn't straighten his... there was all sorts of reasons. But anyway, when we get to the hospital, basically there's only 2 nurses and then the surgeon and his wife, Emily, and me. And I basically have to help him put the cast on, if you will, for the leg.
Really?
Yeah, because they needed something overnight so that basically the bone doesn't fuse in the wrong spot.
Okay.
So it was a bit of an ordeal, that whole thing. And Mitch has spoken about this before, so I'm certainly not leaking anything new. But I had to play a certain role of actually strapping his leg at that stage.
That explains your LinkedIn updates about how you've studied medicine.
Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. But yes, it was a very strange experience. And I think maybe back to how this actually impacts the Bulldogs as a whole. When you see people like Sam, for instance, hurt his knee.
Sam Darcy.
Yeah. The experience you have with hospitals is not the experience that AFL players have, because to give another example, perhaps from my career, we played Port Adelaide in 2016 or 17 over there.
Okay.
And about 2 minutes to go in the game, I compound fracture my finger.
Ooh. Right? Is this the one where we won by 3 points?
It's either the one we just won or the one we just lost.
Well, if it's 16, we won it. I was there.
Yeah.
What's the day Clay got like 50 touches in the VFL? It was a glorious match.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I can't remember.
Okay. What happened? You got taken to
Maybe
some dodgy Adelaide hospital?
No. So I compound dislocated. I've dislocated my fingers a few times. So I try and put it back in, and there's like blood and bone and everything. Anyway, it was a mess. So they put us on a flight late that night, basically. It must have been an afternoon game something like that.
Yep.
And me and Lucas Webb broke his wrist in the same game. I don't know if you're remembering 2016.
Did Dalhouse get injured as well?
Maybe.
Or Caleb? One of our little guys did.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
because
so
I
that's
came off
16.
and there wasn't a lot of sympathy for me. Even though my finger was busted. Anyway, so they flew me and Lucas back, and I was in surgery like the next day.
Okay.
Right? And I played 5 days after that.
Oh, wow.
I played on the Friday night.
Well done.
Quite the experience.
Yeah.
And I woke up in surgery also.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Started
that
speaking
like?
to the surgeon. Well, because it's an arm block, so it's not a general, it's like a sedation. So I woke up with my finger, like you can't really imagine this, but basically they put your elbow into a 90 degrees with your hand pointing up to operate, and they put you in like a brace, basically, so that you can't move. And I'm asleep.
Is there a curtain up so you can't
There was
see?
a curtain.
That's good.
So then I wake up and I'm quite relaxed from the sedative they've given me.
Yeah.
So I look at, I think it was Jason Harvey, he's a really good looking surgeon.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I look at him and I go, "G'day, Jace." And he goes, "Oh, Tom, you're awake. We're just cleaning it up. We've just sort of done everything we need to do. Do you want to have a look?" I'm like, "Yep." So then he pulls the curtain back and he goes, "So this is where the bone came out. This is the little bit that I've fixed up. This is the tendon. All right, Tom, we're just going to put you back under now and finish up and stitch you all up. See ya." I go back to sleep.
That's nice.
Yeah, it was actually awesome because I was so sedated. It felt like the most beautiful experience of my life. It wasn't like I was traumatized or anything, which maybe comes back to this this new concept they've got of using what's the MGMA to treat combat veterans who've got PTSD and stuff, because they basically give them small doses and make them feel all relaxed.
Yeah,
and then
enough.
they talk through the issues that they've had under that state. Is the way that
That's
they
a
do.
very talkative state.
Yeah. So anyway, that was my experience. My point is, I don't know what my point is, but the whole situation with hospitals is very, very different for AFL players. That's just 2 examples of probably 20 I could give you.
Yeah, I don't know how we got onto that, but it was about Mitch Wallace and having that.
Yes, St Kilda. And St Kilda. The traumatisation we've had with St Kilda. That is why I'm traumatised by it.
Yes.
But
Also, the 2020 elimination final. We should have won that.
True. And we shouldn't do too much bashing of other clubs. But let me say, they look horrendous.
They do, and they're not playing the kids. I know their fans are very upset. They're under the pump, as the agenda setters would say. But you have an insight into the St Kilda Footy Club with one of your neighbours.
Yes, Mr. Zane Cordy.
Zane Cordy. How's he? What's his insight?
He's got a busted shoulder.
Yeah, okay.
So he's probably the happiest person at the club at the moment. No, I don't know. I have said this, and there is coaches for, it's like the sort of peacetime leader and the wartime leader. Mm-hmm. And there are some coaches that with a really mature list that's almost there, Ross Lyon is perfect for, where he comes in, just squeezes the last drops out of what's available. And then you look at lists in different positions where they need a bit of a loving, build them all together and be friends and so on, and just make everything comfortable so they feel like as young players they can fail and not be put up as martyrs.
Which is why, and Bevo has been both of those.
Yeah, that's right. It's absolutely right. I would say that is fantastically true. And as I've said maybe 1,500 times on this podcast in the last 12 months, it very much seems like Bevo has shifted back to where he originally landed at the club, which was peacetime.
Yep.
And build up the young kids and the young players and give them the feeling, hey, you guys can make mistakes as long as you're learning and growing and working on the deficiencies that you have, and you're actually doing what the team's asking of you and what I'm asking of you, you'll be fine. Which has been great because, by the way, 4 or 5 of them have stepped up big time.
Very much so.
Which, let's talk about Riley Sanders now, because Riley's experienced all sorts of ends of the spectrum of the media coverage, from being terrible to not important to now the biggest target on Tasmania's list. Because he's from North Launceston, they should pay him $2 million a year. What are we talking about?
I mean,
who's making this stuff up?
Considering we don't even know if the Tasmanian team is happening. I mean, they're having an election.
Well, what we do know is with the Tasmanian team is that currently right as of this moment, it's not happening. It's got some big hurdles in its way to actually happening in the near future, I would say.
You're saying in Parliament?
Well, the provision is we're going to do it with a stadium.
A stadium with a roof.
Right.
And that seems to be the issue for Jackie Lambie and a few others. Like, why is there a roof? Like,
okay, so maybe to make this really simple, there's about 5 people who need to actually tick this thing off, and 3 of them are probably maybe not going to be there. So let's just say Deal is in the at-risk column.
Yes.
So it's all good and well to speculate. But I would also say, how are we going to manage a 19-team competition?
Really well.
Yeah, I don't know.
What's your issue?
Well, it means that we're fundamentally going to be changing the model for the buys. Mm-hmm. It has to be.
Well, then there's talk of the 20th team. Like, you always need an even number of teams.
Yeah,
but rather than cut teams.
Okay, but we knew the 2 teams were going to come through when the Gold Coast and the Giants came through.
Yes.
Yeah, we knew the expansion teams. We don't know where the 20th team is going to be.
Yeah, we do.
Where?
Northern Territory.
Okay, but who's going to build a roof up on the stadium up there?
Well, you don't need one. It's you play in winter, which is dry season there. So
okay, but there is a
don't want a roof there.
Okay, let's say that let's presume it's Northern Territory, right?
Yeah,
that's a 10-year or a 5-year road to getting facilities and everything up and going up there. That's a long time. So regardless, Tasmania is supposed to come in not next year, the year after.
I think so. Yeah, 28.
28.
So 3 years.
3 years, right?
Yeah.
So let's say we're going to have at least 2 or 3 years minimum with a 19-team competition.
Yeah. Well, we had this before you were born. We had this when the Crows were in and the Dockers weren't in yet. So there was 4 years where there was just the bye was rotational. So some weeks, one team had the bye every week, and that sort of worked.
Yeah, I don't hate it. It happened when I was a kid too. I feel like they used to. Wasn't there a time we had rolling buys?
Oh, do you know what it would have been? It would have been when we had Gold Coast, but not GWS. So it was just that 1 year, I believe, 2010. So your final year of childhood.
So, but then did it go to? Because there's been about how many different styles of buys that we had over the years? A few. Yeah,
there's always the way they start at some years, like this round 0 stuff that everyone seems to universally hate. But for a while, it was like they were drip feeding us the start of footy.
Yeah.
Whereas I prefer it all to just start round 1. And by the way, scrap Carlton v Richmond. That's a terrible game.
Yeah, and it should be SCG, Adelaide Oval. Like I would play almost all of the derbies and derbies at the same time.
Oh, not round 1.
No, but I like kicking footy off. I think is awesome if you make all the big, at least make some big games.
Yeah, no, I'd say the A-League made this error where that round 1, they would always put Melbourne versus Sydney, the 2 biggest clubs. But round 1 of, especially in soccer, is the team's sort of, it's a very boring game.
Yeah.
It's very slow, and inevitably it was 0-0, and then the media were all like,
soccer,
soccer's terrible.
Yeah, which is a soccer thing.
Yeah, I guess, but for footy, round 1 is exciting enough. You don't need to add the derbies.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe not the derbies, but there needs to be a big game at all of the big stadiums.
Grand final replay.
Yeah.
I think that should kick it off.
Yeah.
Or that should be Anzac Day.
Yeah.
I know that's never going to happen, but that's something I've often thought, just because Essendon and Collingwood are getting too much money. But this is our agenda setting.
Yeah. Anyway, I think it's and I think the other fundamental issue at the moment is that there seems like there's quite a few teams that aren't up to it, and they're not getting any better.
Oh yeah, that it's not the Bulldogs, so I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I'm fine with it too, but I think it's kind of like. Some of the conversations we've had about the AFLW is there's going to be this growing pain period when you add in all the teams quickly because you spread out all the talent. And also, from a fan's point of view, half of our players who we loved are all gone.
More than half, three-quarters. Yeah,
exactly. So then you don't get this real connection with players, and players drive club and so on and so forth. And I sort of feel like at the moment there's this real, and again, it's not the Bulldogs, which is great. But it does certainly feel like to me that there's some on-field clubs who are just spiraling at the bottom, which we've had probably 15 years of, maybe longer. If you think the likes of Melbourne had that long period, Carlton had a long period, Richmond had a long period before that, which I'm fine with it all happening. But ideally, you don't have clubs sitting at the bottom for 5 or 6 seasons at a time.
Yeah, but I mean, whose fault is that? That's it's bad organisation. It's you
Yeah.
make a few. I mean, it's a game of inches. You get your draft wrong. You don't do your due diligence. You bring in the wrong coach. You bring in the wrong CEO.
Well, maybe to my point. So the other side of that is the off-field performance, right? Which again, the Bulldogs are really, and I mean this. It's like I think if you just take Saints and Bulldogs, the Saints and Bulldogs when I first joined the club were pretty much the same.
Yep.
Right? Membership, money, yada yada yada, brand reputation, on-field performance. The Saints are miles behind where the Bulldogs are now, which is awesome for us, and it's been testament to the great leadership of the team that we have. But there is now going to be less money to go around to more teams, right? As you add in more, so if you add in two more teams, and you also have a bill from the AFL that the AFL is directly funding an additional 2 clubs basically that can't support themselves, which they're going to keep doing for the Giants and the Gold Coast Suns for a period of time.
Yeah, hey, they do it for us as well. I think. I'm not sure if we still get funding.
We get less and less, but it sort of ends up. My point. There's a like you just want the great thing about footy, and I think it's the great thing about NFL as well, is that every game kind of means something, rather than this team is forgotten and they're going to get relegated.
If you look at the English Premier League, there are teams that matches where they can't get Champions League, they can't get relegated. Yeah. So what's the point? Why are we bothering?
Yeah. And there's, equalisation is a fundamentally great part, I think, of the game.
Agreed.
It's getting more and more difficult to do.
Yeah. I think the main factor between us and St Kilda is we won a flag.
Yeah.
And that just selling all the merch from that just eradicated our debt. They have not won a flag since 1966. If they'd won it in 2010 or 09, then they would be in a much better scenario.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of other elements. I think the fact that we are at Whitten Oval and we are the team of Footscray and the work that our club's done to get us into the West has been really important. And I think it's kind of like, to your point, the on-field performance is number one, and the fact that we actually won a flag, and we've been very competitive and played a lot of good footy since.
Yeah.
But number two is there was sort of like 5 or 6 sliding doors moments, if you will, and our club got 4 or 5 of them right out of the ones that were there. So
getting Tom Boyd, having funny banners, all these things.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Well, I do have news on the banner this week. I've been I'm not doing the banner this week. I've been sacked again, only for 1 week, and I've been replaced by my own daughter because it's Kids Mania. So they decided, I sent in a bunch and then they said Kids Mania, and then I just said offhandedly at the bottom of the email, do you want my kids to write some in theme with that? And they went, absolutely, we do.
It is the perfect game and time to do, because to do Kids Week and to do the banner, because hopefully we're up by about 100 points.
Oh, yes.
It'd be nice. Then we don't have to watch it. You can actually watch the kids. Or even better, maybe it's a tight game so then you let the kids do their own thing.
Hang on, do you think the kids are going to play?
No, I don't know.
Bringing in some little leaguers?
Yeah, no, not on the field, obviously, but as in like there'll be all these activations and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I went to a Vixens game earlier in the year, and tell you what, they do kids stuff.
Oh, do they?
So well. So well. They had a whole dance party at the front. They do all these things during the game to keep the kids interested, which is great because I went with a 3-year-old and she needed some things to be kept interesting because she doesn't understand the game. So
yeah. I'll tell you this, a rejected banner for this week because I got my daughter and my son to send it in. They rejected my sons, but I think you'll like this, Tom. Us kids have taken over. Time for a bombshell. Richmond Tigers are the Hufflepuff of the AFL.
Wow.
Harsh.
It is harsh. It's harsh and not really fair because they have actually been victorious.
Well, so did that kid who won the Tri-Wizard tournament, Robert Pattinson, in the film. What's
Diggory?
His name?
He's a Gryffindor.
Cedric Diggory. No, he was Hufflepuff.
Wasn't he? Wasn't that the whole thing that Harry knew him because he was in?
No, they know each other because they go to the same school.
Yeah, is that right?
They were both. Yeah, no. Cedric Diggory's Hufflepuff.
We need to check this,
mate. You can check it right now. I live with two Harry Potter obsessed children. So the films have been watched. Yeah, it was Diggory's big. Diggory was bringing glory to the Hufflepuff house for the first time in forever. Because Gryffindor won it every year. Slytherin, bunch of wankers.
Why is he brave then? Isn't he supposed to be like a real mid person?
Well, yeah, I know. So when you get into Hogwarts, you get this hat puts on your head, sorted, and if you're brave, you go to Gryffindor. If you're smart, you go to Ravenclaw. If you're
ambitious,
you go to Slytherin, and other.
Yeah. All other traits. If you're mediocre,
yes.
you go to the public schoolhouse.
Congratulations. We've deemed you not smart enough for Ravenclaw, not brave enough for Gryffindor, not ambitious enough for Slytherin.
Yeah, and the other thing is that because Gryffindor kind of gets like the loyal and like all of the like good character trait. So you're not even a good person and you're not even good at school. So you go over there.
But you're loyal. Isn't that's just them saying, hey, you're loyal. That's them like gaslighting them saying, because you won't leave, will you? You're too loyal. That is evil, Hogwarts.
Yeah. There's some real deep undertones in that movie the more you dig into it.
So is your mate Vlosten playing this week?
He is.
What should we be targeting with the Tigers?
Well,
I mean, people forget. So while you think of your answer that's well thought out, just for anyone who doesn't realize, you got to remember, we hate the Tigers.
Yeah, we do.
Libba and Knights. I'm talking Tony Liberatore and Matty Knights had a big fight in 97 and Libba got all the blame in the media, even though Knights, I admit Libba started it, but Knights was retaliating him, made Libba bleed, and yet everyone made it sound like the Bulldogs were the villains there. And then they started stealing our players. They were stealing Nathan Brown. And I mean, they were always stealing our players because they were
on the bottom of the ladder.
Yeah, and but even they took Terry Wallace, Katie Brennan. So it's a one. They don't care about us, but remember, we hate these eastern suburbs types.
Yeah.
Enjoy the victory if we have it. Fingers crossed.
I ran into all of their players the other day.
Yep. Ran into them.
I'm trying to make this not a controversy. They're in their bye, so I saw Nick of the guys. They are the youngest group of people I've ever seen. They're all a bunch of like 20-year-olds.
They're doing what St Kilda should do.
So it's a bit difficult. Yeah. Oh, there's a few things that St Kilda need to do. It was because I spoke to a few of them, and they're sort of like very green behind the ears, which I think is good for them growing and hopefully getting good in like 40 to 50 years' time again. But the funny thing is that a lot of their good players, understandably, like Nick's had a great year, and that's because Nick plays behind the ball, and that's where the ball's been all year. So
Nick Vlosten, your mate.
Yeah, he's a good man. And he doesn't play his 250th this week, but I think it might be next week or the week
there's a
after.
bigger 250th next week.
Really?
Marcus Bontempelli.
Wow.
I got a theory on this. Something that has been proven on this podcast. It was originally your theory, and it's proven to be true.
Yes.
So it's pretty much your theory. But so whenever we have a bad loss, that's when the club announces a good re-signing. It'll be Tom Liberatore.
Which he does. They re-sign him twice a year. They only give him 6-month contracts.
So we lose to Hawthorn. Bevo signs on. There's a guy at my gym tells me Bont's going to Collingwood, definitely. However, I'm pretty sure
he's not going to Collingwood yet.
He's not going to Collingwood, but also 250th game and he re-signs.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
This is not one of those ones, like the Bevo one taking a while makes sense. One, because a lot of history there. Two, he doesn't have a manager.
Yeah.
So you actually have to talk to him, and he doesn't have time to have 5-hour discussions about his future when he's preparing for a game. So to do it in the bye makes sense. There's no excuse. Like we spoke about it on the pod at some stage, and I sort of spoke about the different maybe conversations Marcus is having and the leverage points that he has to maybe try and guarantee some of the future success of the club and maybe express some frustrations and also sign a really good monetary deal and yada, 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 and get everything that he wants because he wants the club to succeed.
Yep.
At this stage in his career, there's no doubt that money is still important to Marcus as it is to everyone, but I can only think, knowing Marcus's character, that there's nothing more that he wants than for the club to succeed again before he leaves in 25 years' time. And it does make sense to me that they have kept one in the chamber, if you will.
Yes.
Or maybe a couple. And I think it also makes sense, right? Because maybe they'll go, oh, we just deal with these deals incrementally, as in like, oh, we did Ed at this stage, and this is just how that's not how it works. That's not how it works.
It's not
at all.
like a roster.
It's not that hard to talk to managers.
Yeah.
Right? It's all based on, the only thing that hold up deals is disagreement in the terms or a lack of willingness to talk basically from either the club or the players.
Yeah.
That's it.
So it is Bonts on Friday week. Week after Tom Liberatore's 250th.
Wow.
Yeah, against North.
Isn't that amazing if you really think about that Tom is 3 years older than Marcus?
Yes, but he's done his ACL twice.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah.
But that's like, even if you take that into consideration, both of those guys have barely missed any footy in their entire times, except for those 2 big injuries for Tom.
And I really think we should be playing up. I think the club's marketing, they're doing a great job, but an angle I'd be playing is our Italian Stallions. I want to see Bont and Libba dressed like mafia dons or Roman centurions. Actually, all of this should be a whole series of photo shoots. Them being gladiators or Roman emperors, mafia dons, maybe Milan
Eating
high
some
fashion
swan.
guys eating some swan.
Yeah. I don't know, because we're playing Sydney up.
Oh,
in the
okay, right.
250s, yeah.
I thought I didn't know something about Italian culture. Them driving Ferraris, like them as Super Mario and Luigi. I mean, this is fun.
It just goes on and on
Yeah.
and on. I
Them
think
doing
the problem
Eurovision.
is that both those guys have such a good highlights reel that we could just play that.
I mean, yeah, that'll save you some time. Maybe we could do it with AI.
Yeah, maybe.
That could work.
That could work.
Yeah. Almost forgot to do this. Gigs fact. Andrew Gigach, club historian, has written we're going to get him on once the book is released, the official history of the Footscray Football Club.
I cannot wait.
Updated, but he's giving us facts every week. And so, hey, something happened this week. Who has played? Here we go. I've got to get the wording of that. Which 2 Bulldogs this week become the first pair of AFL players who have played 50-plus games at 3 clubs to appear in the same team? So they've played 50 games at 3 different clubs, but this is the first time that 2 players who have played 50 games at 3 different clubs are on the same team.
Well, Adam Treloar would be one of them.
Is correct.
And Rory Lobb would have to be the other one.
You have got it. Well done.
Okay, there you go.
Because Lobby plays his 50th for us.
Wow.
Very exciting. Treloar's played 79 at GWS, 94 at
Who's had a more interesting career out of those 2?
Oh,
Pretty.
You go Treloar because he's lost 2 grand finals in heartbreaking circumstances.
Yeah. Treloar too, because of just the incredible situation he found himself in at the end of Collingwood era too, where he played such good footy and they were like, you're too expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll pay you to play for someone else.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And
but also, Rory Lobb, pretty interesting, gets drafted as a 20, 21-year-old, goes to the Giants, becomes quite a good player for them, plays in the losing prelim against someone in 2016, and then goes back to Freo. Then after a year tries to leave to go back to the Giants. That doesn't work. Then he tries to do it again the next year. Then he decides to... Did he go back to the Giants in the end? No,
just straight to us.
Yeah. And then he came to us. But he did try to go... Like, that's pretty crazy too.
Yeah.
And then he's also basically was like on the complete outer of our club as a player, both on and off the field, kind of.
Yeah.
Not like, no criticism of Roy here. And now he's like our messiah.
Yeah.
That's a pretty interesting career too.
Oh, damn it. Yeah, they're actually both good. I'd say Treloar just nudges it by a nose, but yeah.
Maybe just because he, maybe just the peak of his powers has been slightly better than Rory's too. Like the All-Australians and so on.
Anyway, that's a good fact, and that is this weekend that we will break that record.
Wow.
Oh, what are you plugging?
There is a lunch coming up at the Ascot Vale Hotel, which is a much-loved hotel for the Western Bulldogs boys. It is on the 29th, Sunday. It's a fundraiser for Beyond Blue. I will be speaking there, and there's only a few tickets left, so get on board. I think it's $50. It's on my socials. Go and come along. Make
Link
sure we
in
sell the thing
bio.
out.
Also, I'm doing a couple of fundraiser shows for the Ukraine Crisis Appeal in Brisbane and Sydney. If any Dogs fans are up there, would love to have you along, and it is a very worthy cause. So look at us doing nicely. Also, this Friday, I'm at the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre for World Refugee Day, answering the phones for a couple of hours.
You're a good person, Danny.
We're both great.
Anyway, we got to talk about some, unfortunately, maybe there is silver lining, maybe it's not. There's obviously a couple of big topics going around the club at the moment, but we are going to sneak behind the paywall to discuss them because it's part of what allows us to do this podcast and where we can be a little bit more honest and open and touch the tricky subjects, if you will.
Yep.
Try and navigate our way through as fans and football people.
Yes, and helps feed our kids. So only $5 a month. I mean, there are higher tiers where you can get merch and things like that. So if you can do that, we would absolutely love it. But in the meantime, we're just slipping behind the curtain.
I gave my childhood to that role of the red, white, and blue sea, and the knowledge that you had to love the Bulldog boys and me. 20 years on, I feel that longing hanging in September air. But the reason I go every week is to pretend you're still there. And they will find the glory one day, and I will throw it at your feet. It's a long, long road they're running for you, the dogs of Foot's grey streets. It's a long, long road they're running for you, the dogs of Foot's grey streets.